shawl to her shoes, the kind of shoes nuns wear. She was as fat as the Indians, but she was a spick. There was a little runt of a spick guy with her in overalls and a shabby dark gray jacket, a greasy hat pulled down over his ears. A mess of little girls was with them, lined up on the bench in their cheap patent leather slippers and cheap straw hats, their starched clean print dresses. They were all spicks, but they might have been Indians as well. He knew all the black silent eyes watched him as he hard-heeled to the desk. He asked, "Where's a hotel?" The fellow behind the desk was any fellow behind the desk in a bus station. He saw too many people to care about any. Tired, harassed, even in this hick dump. "Inca on the corner. Cabeza de Vaca around the corner." Sailor nodded. His nod meant thanks. He was chary of words. The fellow said, "You won't get a room." He jerked his head around. Suspicious. Why not? "Fiesta," the fellow said. Then he was busy with the phone ringing and the sheep starting in through the rear doors. Sailor slid on outside. He didn't want to gab with the ticket agent anyway. He'd find a room. The Inca was a dump, one of those corner hotels with a lobby the size of a dime, a big green fern taking up most of the space. Good enough till he found the Sen. After that, he'd be moving to a real hotel. No rooms. He accepted it because the old man behind the desk wasn't insulting. He was an old gentleman. He regretted it, but there were no rooms. From the corner you could see the sign Cabeza de Vaca Hotel. It hung over the sidewalk, a big sign, and Sailor cut across the narrow street and started towards it. This was a big hotel, an old one. There was a porch with armchairs, most of them filled with cackling old men in faded brown Panamas. As he passed, they looked at him as if he were a stranger, but without interest, only porch curiosity. The lobby was big and cool and shabby old, dark. Not a bad place to hole up while he was doing business with the Sen. The fellow behind the desk was immaculate in gabardine, an expensive hand-woven tie, the kind of a handsome clerk you'd expect at the Stevens, not in a shabby old hotel in a hick town. There were no rooms. The hotel was big enough to hold everyone who'd be coming to a hick town the end of summer. He got a little tough. "What's the idea?" The clerk gave a surprised titter. "It's Fiesta." "What's Fiesta?" The clerk tittered again. "Fiesta," he began. He picked up a pink handbill from the desk. "Tells you about it." He took the sheet only because it was pushed into his hand. Took it and thrust it in his left-hand pocket. The clerk wasn't laughing now. He was arranging his tie. "You won't find any rooms during Fiesta," he began, but his voice trickled away in the direction of a pretty girl with hair that curled like a baby's. Sailor went out again to the sidewalk. The bag was heavier than before. He was hot in the late sunset afternoon. He was sticky and bus-soiled, crumpled. He didn't believe there were no rooms to be had. If he were shined up, he could get a room quick enough in the Cabeza de Vaca. He ought to punch that fancy clerk right in the nose. But how was he going to get clean without a room? He lugged the bag back to the corner and followed the street past the Inca towards town. There'd be other hotels, or a motor court. He turned right at the top of the street, turned to the tinkling sound of music and people. Turned with a city dweller's instinct toward the heart of town. A half block past J.C. Penney's, a grocery store, a drugstore, and he stood on the village square. He stopped there against the glass front of the drugstore, and he set down his valise. This was what the clerk had been talking about. This was Fiesta. Overhead were strings of colored lights. In the center of the square was a small green park, trees and benches and a bandstand draped in red and orange bunting. A low cement wall ran around the park with entrances at each corner, entrances hung with grotesque papier-mâché standards. In the street that circled the park were thatched booths, smelling of food, the acrid smell of chili, stacked with cases of pop, decorated with gimcracks, cheap canes topped with celluloid dolls wiggling feathers, and cheap sticks with